guess we're going to get started and they'll come in and fix that. But I trust everyone got a copy of my slide presentation. It's up here. Please feel free to come up here and get one. I also have transfer guides, which have some great pictures in it, and it's a great resource. It's downloadable in a PDF form off of our resources page to anyone who might want to go back and use it. It was actually written for the service member to help them, as they said yesterday, demystify the process of credit and reading their transcript and how their ACE credit recommendations work. And unfortunately, this doesn't get disseminated well enough to the service members, so I often will ask that you take some of these back for your counselors and all, and then they can give them to service members that come in and may have a little trouble understanding exactly how that whole process works. And it certainly helps to support y'all's position as well when you say, well, yes, you know, ACE recommended 30 semester hours of credit. However, they're in nuclear engineering and you're going into psychology, and none of those credits really apply to this degree plan that you're, signing up for. So this is really a good reference, and please feel free to take them. The other thing I have up here is a postcard. This came from our Veterans Office, and it has the website for the Veterans Toolkit. And this is very helpful to institutions as far as how to be more veteran-friendly. Lots of resources for you up there to connect to other schools that have great veterans support programs, etc. And that way you don't have to reinvent the wheel, because there's a lot of wonderful programs out there that are doing really good things with veterans. So please feel free to grab one of those as well. Okay? All right, well, today what I'm here to talk about is reading and interpreting courses and occupations. And there's two ways to look at those. The ones when you actually get the transcript on site and you're trying to figure out what to do with it. The other is using our military guide online to do the same thing, essentially. And actually, the military guide online will give you some additional information that's not present on the transcripts. So I hope that's what y'all are here for. Sometimes people show up and, we don't exactly address what the audience needs are. And a lot of times when I do these, I start out by asking the audience, what are you here to get? What do you want to know? And then that kind of helps me as far as where I should place my emphasis. So does anybody want to tell me what you want to know? Questions you might have? Okay, then. All right. Well, I'll just move along. The first thing we always like to emphasize is the value of a service member's transcripts. And I know that that's probably redundant to you guys because you're aware. It helps the service members with their degree completion. It helps when they're looking to attend a particular training or certification verification, where they come from on the military side. Employment, because sometimes it helps them when they go to apply for a job and they can present that military transcript. So it has multiple uses. Oh, fabulous. All right. Okay. So here we go. All right, so lots of uses: job advancement, skills documentation, advanced college placement, state credential verification, and resume development. Some of these people don't ever think of when they're thinking about this arts or smarts transcript. They just think, well, it's just good to go to college. But when we go out and talk to students, we try to tell them that there are lots of other ways that they can use this document to their benefit. The next thing I have is a handy tool. Do any of you guys ever, when you're looking at the different transcripts, you're a little confused about what the ranks are? What do you call somebody in the Navy? What do they call them in the Marine Corps? And don't even go to the Air Force, because I never did get that one down. Well, this is something that's on our resources page too. And even I, after 22 years in the military, and I've done several joint assignments, I refer to this many times, just as a refresher or whatever, but it can really help you when you start to, interpret that transcript. So you can print it out, you got a little copy of it, but you can get a full-size copy, as I said, on our resource page. So When we look at the transcript, we tend to, and as an administrator, I know I did this as well, we tend to see this as a one-dimensional document, but it really is not. A service member's transcript is made up of the contents of 3 databases. The service member's personnel database, which reflects all the courses that he attended, when he went to school, where he went to school, etc. The other thing is the registrar system, and that's service specific, and that comes, actually what it reflects is the service's master training database, because every service has a master training base, and that's where the course numbers and the locations become very critical to the credit representing properly on the transcript. And then, of course, it comes from the military guide, or the ACE database. Now, for a serviceman's transcript to line up properly, all the planets have to align. So it is very complex, and there are a lot of moving parts, so therefore there are a lot of areas of vulnerability, all right? One thing I want to talk about right up front, after that introduction, is the new Joint Services Transcript that's debuting. Has anybody heard about that? A couple of people. Okay. Well, it's a great thing. It really is, because no longer, well, you'll still have the Community College of the Air Force transcript, but the Coast Guard, the Marines, the Navy, the Army will all look alike. And they will all be coming from one operations center, and that will be what is currently known as the SMART Operations Center, because as Army, I've got to tell you, the Navy, they get it right. They are outstanding. So it's going to do a lot of good things for you guys. It's going to do a lot of good things for the service members. Yes?
Now, will it go to all online? Because I know the Navy and the Marine Corps was not.
Mm-hmm.
It's just to now migrate where the Navy and the Marines can still be online.
I'm gonna tell you that in just a second, because that's still not standardized across the board. So you got the uniform transcript modeled after the SMART template. It's going to start, everything was supposed to kick off like in January, but the Army had a lot of migration issues with their they had a legacy system, and it was dying, and then there was issues when they began to migrate it to the new one. But that's coming along nicely. That's supposed to be completed in March 2013. The Coast Guard finished, they're almost done February, March time frame. And of course the the Marine Corps and the Navy, they're already in the process, and they'll just, they just are. Like I said, one data model and one operations center. You'll still have, when you get the things, you'll still have the branch of the service seal on there that'll show you. It still will reflect occupations, ratings, etc., service specific. It'll still give you the service guidance, any unique caveats that are attached to exhibits, and information for contacting for help, etc. And then once again, you'll have one website that you can go to refer to. You don't have to go to 4. Like on our webpage, we've got here's a link to the Air Force, here's the link to the Coast Guard, so it's really going to be of a benefit to you all as well as to our service members. So what you're going to have too, this is a very complicated process. Believe me, things I never even thought about. They're coordinating. Issuing the press release. I mean, everything is I don't know. It's kind of anal, if you ask me. But they want to make sure all the bases are covered. So I don't want to criticize that. But it's going to be a Department of Defense URL. Like I said, SMART model, the communication piece that's going out. ACE is sending out a press release. Dante's, who runs the contract, they're going to do one. It's going to be disseminated at the CCME and the other educational conferences out there. All of the service newspapers are going to advertise it, etc. And And once again, they'll have the dod.mil email address for your contact information. Now, you had the question about the delivery mechanisms, and this is what's going to happen. The Coast Guard, Navy, and the Marine Corps, you will be able to get both the online and the hard copies still. The Army, it migrated to online delivery only about 2 years ago, I believe. So that's not going to change. You'll still only be able to get it online. And any of the institutions that are receiving those, like I said, from the Army, you'll take the JSTs the same way. Okay? They are trying to minimize the disruption to you guys as well as to the service members, and there's a lot of stuff going on behind. So I really want to concentrate on the Joint Services Transcript, so that means we'll focus on the Navy model, but I do want to touch on the similarities because you're still dealing with the older transcripts, and these are the components that that they have in common. You still have the personal service data on your service members, their rank, I think they're taking the Social Security numbers off, I hope. You'll have the same, you see the different sections, the military courses, you'll see the military experience, and then you'll see the testing section and the summary page on the SMARTs only, obviously. And then the SMART also has that academic institution page that shows all the schools that they've gone to. But those, of course, are the 6 and 7 are unofficial pieces of the transcript. They're just nice to have tools for y'all when working with transcript. So on the Coast Guard, essentially, you have the same thing, the old Coast Guard. It looks a little different because the Coast Guard, they actually issue their own transcripts, so they punch everything. They had punched everything in, hard copy, you know, one-on-one kind of thing, because they're a much smaller service, so that's still a manageable way to do it. But now it's going to be much better. But you know, they have the lower level, upper level, semester hour codes. They break down, essentially, it's the same information on all of them. It's just in a different place, and they may call it something a little different. So this is the SMART, and this is the structure that I'm sure y'all are familiar with. As I said, you'll see the official seals up there. You'll see that it is marked official, the service member's data, and the mailing location that it's going to go to. That's y'all. On the SMART, talk about the course completions. This is where all the formal training that they've received in the military should be represented, all right? That's not always the case, but we'll get to that in a minute. But as you can see, you've got a learning outcome up there under recruit training. And then it goes down, it talks about the recommendations in marksmanship, etc. And then it gives you credit recommendations, and then it tells you that it's lower level over on the far left. And of course that means that lower level is 100 or 200 level. I'm sure you guys, if I'm telling y'all stuff you know, I don't want to, I don't want to do that. All right, so this is a course sample, and there are examples in that transfer guide that I gave you too, as well as on the handout sheet. But you can see that this is a Marine Corps course, and I know there's somebody in here whose husband is a Marine, and he's doing recruiting duty now. So this looks familiar, I'm sure. So when you look at this, one of the things you want to look at, you ask yourself is, okay, when did this service member complete this course? Tell me when he completed the course. That's right, the 24th of October, 2002, all right? Now, there was an issue, I don't know, bless you, I don't know if, I know y'all have some Navy folks that you would have worked with transcripts, but I'm sure you probably, the majority of y'all's transcripts are Army that you work with. Is that the case? Yeah. But some Navy, has anybody seen some of the Navy issues? Okay. I don't know if you've ever run into this, but this is something that I picked up on a while back, and it was quite disturbing. When the Navy looks and transcripts something like this, the date that it will present on the service member's transcript, based on the exhibit dates, is that finish date. Okay, which is really flawed, because when we go out and we do a course review, we're looking at a training start date. That's the date that we key off of, because that's when that curriculum goes into action. All right, the old curriculum is thrown out. But that doesn't mean that there's not a course in progress under the old curriculum. So what they would do is, if they finished up and say there was a gap, and then we picked this up on, let's see, let me give you an example. Trying to think of one. I've answered to several of these just recently, but it fell outside of their window for the next exhibit start that we published, and so they didn't give the service member the credit, because they said, well, you finished it before the new curriculum began. However, they didn't give them the old credit because that curriculum was still in progress. You see what I'm saying? So if you notice something like that, bring it to the service member's attention, because it has happened, and I do get some calls, and they're going to fix this on the new one, and they've already taken action, but it can cause some, missing credits on your service member's transcript, Navy particular. So in the course exhibit, the things you want to look at is, okay, when did that person attend the course? And therefore, you'll find out what version your credit will align under. Like, this course has been reviewed 3 times since...
Question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Can you go back to the screen?
Sure.
So it says he's getting 3 hours for public speaking
Mm-hmm. In lower level,
for lower level.
and 3 hours in sales.
Okay. And they got a month and a half.
Okay, now, you have to take the academic mindset out of this, because these students are going to class 8 hours a day for a month and a half. So you think about that. Translate that into
And 40 hours is
seat time.
400 minutes credit hours. So yeah. So
Okay, you
Your
see what I'm
ACE
saying?
guide code will bring that out too. That's why she's saying you can't live in a vacuum and make that your sole source.
Exactly, and we don't. We look at it, but it's not the end-all and be-all. It's just a piece of the formula that's used. And as Belle was saying yesterday, truly it is the content, scope, and rigor of that course. And does it meet post-secondary education requirements? That's really it, because a lot of corporate training, their credit recommendations are very different from ours, because they may have a course that's 2 days long, and they may give them 3 semester hours. But like I said, I do the military, all right, and I really can only attest to what we look at, and believe me, I know.
So the marketing and sales will be like an intro class?
Probably, yeah, because it's lower level. You think about, if they're going into a marketing program, or they're in a marketing program. Yeah, exactly. And we'll get into another resource that you have now. This one should have it, but like I said, one thing I want to point out right up front is in 2006, we instituted something at the... Okay, yes, ma'am.
My question has to do with the dates. You were talking that it's very important that the credit's not given. Is that because it's not going to show up on the transcript?
Right. It'll fall down. It may show up, but it will not fall into this one and show their credits that are reflected. It'll fall down to that other learning experience category, which I'll break down for you, and there won't be any credits there won't be any credits assigned to it, and it may have a reason, ACE did not evaluate it during this time frame or something along those lines. I'll show you those when we get down to it. But if it falls in this category, this is good, because that means it's presenting properly on the service member's transcript, okay? Oh yeah, so going back to the other assets you have available to you. In 2006, we do a lot of these workshops, et cetera, and we kept hearing from counselors, registrars, department chairs, et cetera, over and over again, that they needed more information about the content. When we made a recommendation for marketing, well, what were the related competencies that we saw in that curriculum content that fell under marketing? So what we did is we created another field where when we're out reviewing courses, our evaluators are required to look in depth and break down in the weeds, what does the content of that course consist of? Okay, yeah, it falls under a marketing heading, but what's covered under marketing? So that you guys would have an additional insight into the content curriculum. Now, the problem with that, and it's being addressed, and it will be addressed again this year when we have our data summit, where we meet with all the service chiefs and talk about what's on these transcripts and what's needed on the transcripts. It is not on the transcripts currently. You guys have to take the initiative to go to our military guide online and pull it up. And it is there. And the reason that they elected not to put it on the transcripts is because they were still producing paper copies. And when you look at a Navy transcript, those things are like 13 pages long, and that person only had 3 years in service and was an E4 when they got out. So when you add related competencies, it was like going to be a 25-page transcript. And it was just prohibitive for the services to do that. So that's why at this juncture, it's only available to you in the guide online. And not all of the courses, if they were reviewed prior to 2006, then they won't have them. You're just going to have to, make your own determination without that additional piece. Okay? Yes?
On the new joint transcript, since they predominantly will be in an online format, is it going to be possible to click on the ACE ID number and get to that exhibit?
That's a very good question. I do not know. We are still really, I just got in a sample of what they're going to look like yesterday. And we're required to do quality control, quality assurance on them. So, we're pushing up against that March. It may be end of March as opposed to 1st of March deadline. So we can, and just like anything else that involves technology, remember, you're going to have a lot of hiccups and a lot of little, ruts in the road, and they're going to be constantly tweaking it. So, but that's a good point, and I want you to send me an email about that, because I'll bring it up when I meet with the powers that be on that. That's great. If you guys have any other suggestions, please do the same thing, okay? Yes?
In similar to hers, my registrar, as we migrate to the new, Army is already online, but can you stop sending them out as PDF? Here's why. If the registrar can have it where it's in a document based, it's easier to pull the data in and do the articulation without the review of the PDF. So all you can do is then electronically set the parameters to say that when that electronic version comes into my office, and I already know ACE guide code XYZ comes in, and it goes for comms 1110, it automatically pulls it versus registrar having to pull up a PDF, physically look for version 3, physically look for, it automatically does it, and the PDF will not allow that to do that. And that's why, at least for my school, the registrar doesn't pull ARC's transcripts as often as he should, because it's a lengthy process to do that.
Well, that's, once again, yeah, and like I said, my information is in there. I'm the one who does the inquiry box. Please shoot me an email and, reference this event and send me those, because I've got a memory that's this long. I'm sorry, I'm old, and it's like first in, first out, you know what I'm saying? So, but absolutely, I think there may be issues with that, and the reason, I've been away from the higher ed environment for a while, down at the registrar level, is it should be just like when you send out an official copy of your transcript. You're not going to have that capacity to do that, or another school. You're not going to have them that insight, or that what's the word I'm looking for? The ability to modify that transcript in any way, or to manipulate it, is what I'm saying. And that may be the very reason why it is in a PDF form, because they don't want anybody monkeying around with it. I don't know what to tell you. Now, I can tell you that University of Maryland, University College, they have a system, and they have that can pull that stuff off. I don't know. They were using it was called the Hershey system, and I know that because Troy piloted that system that I worked for 5 years ago. And then they adopted it, and they can receive those transcripts in it. Their system pulls it right off, drops it right into a degree plan, and it's really quite handy, from my understanding. Well, we started out using the Hershey system.
And what was your student information system?
Downtown. Yeah, we use downtown. And I don't know, I'm trying to think, is it Banner? I think UMUC uses. So, just a thought, and like I said, there's never anything wrong with reaching out to some of these other universities that have things in place that could be useful to you, because you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And a lot of them are, happy to share, or to give you, share their ideas. So, but send me those emails on those suggestions, and I will definitely bring them to the panel. Okay. So, you completed the course then. So what you want to look at here is this is what you would see. So you're like, okay, so which version applies to this guy? Because it's been reviewed 3 times, and from 1978 to present. All right. So actually, version 3 would be the one that that you would look at, because it goes from 399 to present. All right. The other thing you might look at is you might look at the location, because a lot of times when the services send their programs of instruction to us, they will not be complete for some reason. They're just human as well. And we might get a heads up after we publish an exhibit that they took their training at Paris Island, and only Camp Lejeune is referenced on that course number, that time frame, that exhibit. So what we do then is we contact the folks, and we say, that sent us the program of instruction, and say, okay, hey, we're getting calls that you may have left off a training location. And we work with the services, and we can actually fix those kinds of things. They will submit a new, a corrected POI to us. We will analyze it, make sure it is exactly the same POI that we reviewed 3 or 4 months ago or whatever, except for the addition of the training location, and then we'll delete the old one from the file. Because we have everything in digital format. We keep every document sent back to 1954 that's ever been submitted to us is scanned into a digital database, and I'm constantly pulling them up. So we would do that.
We see that. We saw one this fall. That same way that it was that they took it a different
Location.
training location, and it wasn't in your list.
Right.
The military guy. So do we email?
Sure, you can send it to, and there's a military ed email address that all of the things are coming into. There's several links way you can get to us, but you just send it in. They're all coming into me on the military side of the house, and I'm working on the weekends. I got 54 of them, and it's everybody. It's you guys, it's service members all over the world with questions. And I'm happy to do that, because that's what it's all about. Veterans that are out, and they're trying to figure out how to fill out a DD 295, and don't even get me started on those. Anyway, so that's another point that you would look at, is training locations. There you see the version 3. It gives you, once again, every version has the learning outcomes. They may be slightly different. They may not. Some courses have been taught since 1961, and the training outcome hasn't changed, like diesel engine repair. Diesel engines haven't changed, and how to repair them hasn't changed. But we will go in and review them every 10 years to make sure that the credit recommendations are aligning with what you guys are teaching out there in mechanical degrees. All right, so that's the way that works. And this too gives you a little more information on the credit recommendation when you see it, if you not get enough, to go back and look at the learning outcomes, because it does kind of give you more insight into what was the expected outcome that you can actually compare to your syllabus. And then we also have the instruction section, and that just tells you if they're using PowerPoints, if they're using lecture, if it's hands-on, if it's a lab, if it's a simulator. So once again, that's another point that may help you when you're drawing that comparison to try to see if it fits into one of your courses. And here's the related competencies, and I'll show you this. Like I said, it comes out the military guide online, so we'll look back at it again. But on the version 3, and you can see it only has version 3 on them because we didn't do them before 2006. And that course was reviewed in 2010. So it's not necessarily the training start date, but I'll show you that. It's when we actually, a team went out and reviewed that course, and that's when these would come out. So in public speaking, you would have things like audience engagement, communications, effective delivery methods are looked at. Interpersonal communications, they're required to do some writing, news writing. And then presentations, of course. They do a lot of that in recruiting. So hopefully y'all will you do find this helpful. Okay, so let's move on down to the occupations held section. Now this is where MOSs are reflected. The Army and the Marine Corps call them MOSs. The Navy and the Coast Guard call them occupations or ratings, either one, interchangeably. And I don't know what the Air Force calls them, but we don't do the Air Force, so we don't have to worry about that. AFSC. Oh, there you go. See, they got these long acronyms for everything. All right. So occupations held represent the jobs that the service members hold while they're in the Army or the service. And they generally will correspond with the formal courses, because there will be an AIT, an Advanced Individual Training course reflected on the Army. There'll be an A school reflected on the Navy, etc. So you will see on the primary MOS, you will see you should see a corresponding formal training. But what we do when we go out and look at these is we actually do a formal panel interview. And we require their service members in each pay grade, depending on where the service starts awarding their credit for on-the-job training or on-the-job competencies. And at the Navy does it at the E3 level, starting at E3. And the reason for that is because they test, formal tests for their promotion. So those panels can be, there are a handful of occupations that they only hold for a short period of time at the E3 level. And we do review those because they get out of school and they're spending that time out there, so what did they learn? The majority of them they start at E4. And that's where you have to test to get promoted to E4, E5, E6, E7. Now when we go out and do these reviews, unless it's classified, our faculty actually see the service-wide tests. And believe me, that might as well be classified top secret, blah, 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 because those things are very, very closely held. So it speaks well for the Navy in that they are comfortable enough to have someone bring them out to us We open them up for every pay grade, and what we're doing is they're looking to see if they are testing those critical tasks that are required by that occupation, and then how do they address the skills that they may learn on the job above and beyond what they got in that formal classroom. So it's more subjective because it depends, number one, on the panelist, you know, how forthcoming they are, how articulate they are. And when we send out these things, we're hoping that the Navy's going to send us, or the Army's going to send us the best and their brightest in that MOS or occupation. That doesn't always happen, you know, but our faculty members are very, very adept at teasing information out of them, getting them to talk, getting them to relax. So it's a process that we go through, but it is just as you know, stringent as it is when we review the courses. Okay? Now, a lot of colleges and universities are very hesitant to take occupation or MOS recommendations. And that is because they are very subjective, and they are experiential learning. That's exactly what they are. So, you know, and it's interesting because I was listening yesterday to the panels and them talking, and I thought, well, you know, that's really, PLA is really what this is. I mean, it really is prior learning that we are assessing when we go out and do these reviews. So there's definitely a correlation. And we, in the old, say the old Army transcripts, old ARTS transcripts, you may recall that you might have a primary MOS reflected, you might have a secondary MOS reflected, and then you will have perhaps a duty MOS reflected that doesn't match either the primary or the secondary MOS. And different colleges and universities, they handle that differently. And we'll talk about transfer policies toward the end of this, but some schools, well, it's helpful if you understand the process, particularly on the Army side. 9 times out of 10, you're going to get training in your primary MOS. 9 times out of 10, you are not going to get training in that secondary MOS they assign you. When I was in the Army, I was an intelligence analyst, and my secondary MOS was clerk typist. It generally will be a generic type of an MOS that the Army has great need for. And it could be clerk typist, it could be truck driver, it could be cook. They're critical, but they don't feel that they necessarily require a lot of training. That you could, if you had to, you could step in, you could drive that truck, you know, you could do paperwork, admin paperwork if you needed to, etc. So no training. Then you have the duty MOS. Now, particularly in wartime, you'll see a lot of folks that are serving in a duty MOS that might be outside their primary or their secondary MOS because of the needs of the military. In that case, what I've seen, either colleges and universities don't entertain that at all if they do accept any of the occupation or MOS credit, or what they're looking for is if the service member can provide supporting documentation like an evaluation report, etc., that are a DD-214, an ERB, whatever, that reflects that they are serving in that MOS, and they will say if you have served in it at least a year, then they will consider credit. University of Maryland, University College, I use them because I have a contact there and we talk a lot because she's always sending me questions. So I'm very familiar with their, their policies. So that's something to think about too, if you can have supporting documentation. All right. Okay, so once again, you're seeing, this was what I was talking about, the seaman on the E3s. This is one of those in the Navy that starts at the E3 level. The seaman, fireman, there's a list of them. There's about 5. Once they make E4, they have to decide what they want to be when they grow up. and at E4 they'll go into another occupation. They only stay these as at the E3 level. Very interesting the way the Navy does it. Okay. All right. So the next section on the transcript will be your college level test scores. Those would be your CLEPs, you know, things of that nature, Dante's, whatever's out there. And your you see your DLPT test scores will be represented on there as well. And that's pretty cut and dried. I mean, I don't think anybody has any questions about those. Now here's this is the problematic section. This is where all things unassigned go to rest, other learning experience category. And you can see there's a legend up at the top, and it says number 1, if it's got a 1 over there, it means the course has not been evaluated by ACE. If it's got a 2, it says class attendance dates were not recorded in the service member's record. 3, course not completed during the ACE evaluation period. And 4 is the course is not evaluated by ACE at this particular location. So, and if you know how to interpret these and you become very familiar with the transcript process, you can generally tell what the problem is when the service member comes to you and says, I don't understand why this is not working. If they have a course that's not on here anywhere, and many of them have those, and they can show you in their record, see, I took this course. I have this certificate of completion. I took this course. Why is it not reflecting on there? When that happens, that is because it is not in their personnel file anywhere. So they took the course, and for some reason, it didn't get transcribed into that service member's personnel record. So what they need to do is they need to take that certificate of completion to their S1, their personnel officer, whatever they're calling them these days, and have it entered into their record. And in a period of time, it will show up. It'll show if it meets one of these other criteria, it may show up down here in the other learning experience, but at least it's on there, and then we can address it from there. But the key really is to get it on the transcript. Okay? No questions? All right. Now this was what I was talking about, the summary page on the SMARTS transcript. And this is a page that SOC, Service Members Opportunity Colleges, they work with arts and SMARTS really, and they have degree mapping, and then they have your SOC agreements where service members, you know, there's a 2-year and a 4-year consortium, and community colleges in 4 years, where they're going to tell you where those courses fit into those degree maps and into those agreements with the other colleges and universities in their consortium. And that's what those codes are. We, however, at ACE, we don't do any quality control on this. That's why we say this is unofficial, because we don't validate it. It's a tool for you guys. And then the academic institution courses. And it states very clearly it's not in a part of the official transcript. And what this does is for any college course that a service member took and used tuition assistance, it will be reflected on here. And so this is a help to you guys too, because you know when you have them fill out an application, you know, especially service members, when you got 42 institutions you have to list on that application and get the transcripts. This is just a help to show you what other you know, colleges and universities they may have attended using tuition assistance while they were on active duty. Okay, so on military transcripts, I talked about the other learning experience, and I went through the explanations in the legend, and they're pretty self-explanatory. The number one reason on an Army transcript that you will have something fall down in that other learning experience category is because the course number does not match. And it is a continuing problem that we at ACE are working very, very diligently with a TRADOC and the schools, the service schools that are out there to correct those things, because they have a habit of producing a program of instruction, and it may be one letter off. It doesn't matter. We put it into our system exactly the way it is reflected on that program of instruction. The problem comes in when that program of instruction doesn't match what is in ATARS, which is the Army's Master Training Database. And we are working, as I said, very hard with TRADOC quality control to get that rectified. Because you guys deal with a lot of Army transcripts, you probably see a lot of that.
Now, ARC only goes back to 1981. What if you have someone that walks into your office and he or she took courses prior to 81?
Well, that's not really a true statement. I know that's what it says, but it's not. Because I went into the Army in 1973, and my transcript is in there. So the first thing I tell them is to look. Just look. You don't know.
And I hate the difference because I had this happen. I walked and I sent
Oh, I'm not saying it doesn't happen.
And I sent an email to ARC and they answered me back and said, you know, our database doesn't go even back to 1981.
I know. But like I said, taking myself as an example, I entered the Army in 1973. And if I had access, I could pull my unofficial transcript right up here and show it to you. So it's not 100%. The first thing you tell a service member is to check, because a lot of times they will read that and they'll stop right there. And you don't want to just go on in and check. It only takes half a minute, right? Now, if it's not in there, there are very specific instructions on that website about how to handle that situation. Now, are they effective? Do they work? I don't think so. A lot of people try, they use the VMET channel. ARTS has taken to telling everybody if you want to correct your transcript or anything else that you need to do a DD-295. The only other option really is to take, that depends on your college and university, is to take your DD-214 or your other official documentation to your college and university and try to work with them. The DD-219s are horrible. The DD-295s. And I've had a lot of those. People are sending them to me. I got a stack of them through the mail. They all come in through the mail. So I have to look at all of them, read their letters, and then I have to write them letters back, because many times they don't include an email or a phone number. So I'm drafting a formal letter back to them, and I return the documents back to them. Because ACE does not evaluate DD-295s. We don't do that. But somehow when they read the instructions on the back of that DD-295, they interpreted that when it says ACE is available for consultation or questions, they interpret that to mean, please send your DD-295 to ACE and they'll take care of it. And I would love to, because I've done a lot of DD-295s when I worked for Troy. I don't have a problem with them. I know how to do them. The problem is that there's 7 people in my section. And with everything we do, there's just not enough time in the day. That's why I said I'm answering inquiries, weekends and in the evenings, because I actually do a lot of other things as well. So there's just not enough manpower to go around. But if they're doing a DD-295, as long as you're active duty, that can work for you. But they're sending it out to veterans that are no longer near a military base. They're out in the middle of Montana somewhere going to college, and they have no way to access your base. Because what that document tells you to do is it says, number 1, fill it out. Follow the instructions and fill it out. Then it says go to your S1, your personnel officer, and have them certify it. In other words, that everything you said you've attended, it was reflected in your formal file, and so they certify it. Then it tells you to take it to your education service officer at your ed center and get them to certify it. And they're supposed to sit down with you, with a service member. They're supposed to help them translate that course number. In other words, pull out those ACE guides, or pull up the military guide online, look up those course numbers, and attach that ACE ID number. Then they're supposed to do that, and then they're supposed to sign off on it, and they're supposed to mail it to you guys, to whatever college the student is trying to attend, so that you can get them and you can assess it and evaluate it for transfer credit. That's the process of the DD-295. And it's bad. It's very bad. So that's really the only mechanism that they're publicizing right now to fix it. So I wish I had a better answer for you, but I do not. I can only encourage you guys to work with your service members. You can do that just as well. If they bring you a DD-214 or they bring you an ERB that reflects the course numbers and the location and the time frame in which they attended, you can go right in, because that document is official. You can go into the military guide online. You can do the exact same thing for your service members. Okay? Yes, sir. According to the Army, they are. Yes. But I try to get one because everything wasn't on my transcript, and so I was going to use that to do correction or to see what else was out there. I never got it. I don't know what the deal is with that. So I have not had a lot of feedback from service members or veterans that have attempted to use that, but I know that is the other document that is referenced on the Army website. Bless you. Now there's another thing that's going around that you guys might have encountered. I'm trying to think of what it's called. And this is for service members that got out maybe before the war. And is it called Vrack? Anybody? Does that ring anybody's? Yeah, Vrack? Is that right? Right, and they're having a lot of problems because the people that at the colleges and universities are not all very familiar with the process. And I guess it's kind of like voc rehab, because and if you're not familiar with that, you know there's a lot of hoops that they have you jump through. And the same thing with this new process, but it gives the older service members an additional 18 months or something like that for job retraining. Yeah, it's a great thing. I just heard about it. I was very excited. But the problem is that some of them can't get those ARTS transcripts, and that's a requirement to send the packet in to qualify. So I've been working with some of them and trying to help them, but these are just a lot of the other things that are going on behind the scenes, and these are not part of our contract at ACE. I mean, I'm not a contract thumper, you know. It's not my job. I'm not that kind of person, and we are not. We do whatever we can, but you know, we don't want to step on anybody's toes or you know, act like we're the authority, because we're not on all of these things. We just some lessons learned in trying to assist our service members. Yes.
Whatever you just mentioned. It's not through DA, it's through the Department of Labor.
Exactly. Yes, it's through the Department of Labor, but they still have almost the same requirements as you have with someone's trying to apply for voc rehab. The same type of packet has to be put in.
Well, the one kicker in that is that it only goes up to age 60.
Okay.
It doesn't care how old you are or how long you've been out. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, and it's a great tool for, you know, any of your older folks that want to go back to school, you know, your veterans. So you can Google it. That's what I did. Somebody said, oh, I'm trying to put in my VRAP package. I said, you're what? And so I went in and looked at it, and it's really nice because there are a lot of people out there, Vietnam era, that are looking to retrain into some of these high-tech areas, and it's just a great benefit to them. So that's another tool in your toolbox. All right. So are there any other issues that you guys are seeing out there on these transcripts like these that you really don't understand what's happening or how to address them? Or this pretty much summarizes all of them? I'm sure there'll be many more when we get into the JST. Okay, so in the meantime, this is still the contact information for the Smart Operations Center. As I said, these guys are really, really good. I work with them a lot, and I just think that everybody should model their operation after them because they are outstanding professionals. Okay, so now what I want to talk about is using this military guide online. Does people out here, do y'all use the military guide online? One? Couple? Yeah. Do you find it to be helpful? Well, when I was working for Troy, when I first started, I was working at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. So I started my little venture in higher education working with Marines and sailors mostly. We didn't have, when I first got down there in '96, we didn't have internet connection for a year or so. And what we had was very sporadic. So what we did have, and you guys may remember, are those old ACE guides, the books. We used to publish them every couple of years. That's how I started, that's how I learned about ACE. I mean, this is what I started. So this is great as compared to those things where you're leafing through those pages and back and forth and everything. So use it because it's truly a resource. We are transitioning. You may have noticed if you've been on the website, our website recently, that it's got a whole new look, and that's because ACE has undergone a complete new skinning of our website, which has caused us, in particular, many, many problems. Broken links, and if you've used it in the past 6 months, you may have encountered some of those, or you hit the link and it takes you back to the main page and things like that. Well, slowly but surely, those kinks are all getting worked out. But the URL is actually changing from the old military guides to the new web address. All right. So, the military guide online is updated every day. And the services upload our material also daily. So, well, the Army didn't, but the Navy did. And with the Joint Service Transcripts, like I said, that's all going to become so much more efficient and so much more accurate. It's really up to date. The last printed guide was 2006, and then we have one book that covers the 54 to 89 time frame. And that's always interesting to go back and look at some of those documents. They're all yellow. They were. We scanned them all in. So, it works just the way the old paper guides do. It's very user-friendly. As you can see, you search courses, search occupations, takes you right to it. 1, 2, 3, and you're in. You also have the military guide homepage. You have how to use it. There's an instruction, and then you have a frequently asked questions. And a lot of times people will send us emails or call us, and I usually will suggest that the first place you look is that frequently asked questions because it's very comprehensive. And we're constantly updating it. And things that you may ask us, and we start hearing those questions a lot, we'll add those to them. So we're always trying to stay on top of it. So, course search. As you can see, there are many ways you can search for a course. The trick really is to just keep your search simple. And you can, if you know the ACE ID number, you can plug that in. You can limit it to Army or Navy, you know what service you're looking for. If you have the course number, you can punch that in. The title, or say, I went to this school at Camp Lejeune. You can put Camp Lejeune in there, the year they took the course, etc. It's really been expanded in the past year, and it's even more effective, I think, than previously. And then we also added the course subject and then the course level. Like if you wanted to look for upper level courses in management, you could plug that in and it will pull all those courses. So, you know, you can refine it as much as you want, or you can, you know, pull back and make it as general as you like. But it's not case sensitive, so, you know, we've really made it as user-friendly as possible. Some of the ways, as I said, you can search is by keyword. I do a lot of keyword searches. The ACE ID number is always the quickest, easiest way if you have it, but it's not critical. And here's your expanded search that I talked about. This one just went into effect in October 2012. And it allows you, as I said, to search by academic credit and levels or related competencies. Okay, so your course exhibit, when you're looking at it in the Military Guide online, as I said, a little different, and the reason for that is because you will see that the related competencies are reflected on these, and they're not on the actual transcript. You will see linkages, like this one on the learning outcomes. It tells you that before 598, you should see AR 1406-0159. And there are various reasons why a new ACE ID number could have been assigned. You know, you don't really need to be concerned about that. But one thing that is important is these dates at the bottom. The first date is a team review date. That is the actual date that a team that we put together went out to Oklahoma, to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and reviewed those courses on site. The second date is administrative date. Now that can be the same as in this case, or it might be different. Now if it's different, it's not any cause for concern. All that means is that they submitted another POI to us. We took a look at it, compared it to the one before. There were no significant changes, and it was within its 10-year window. So we probably CE'd it, which means we credit extended it. The clock doesn't start over again when we do that. It just continues on toward that 10-year mark. Based on workload and things of that nature, and once again, the bottom line is content. If they've introduced a new piece of equipment, there's some new technology, if they've shortened the course significantly, we want to go in and look and see what they've taken out. Or if they've lengthened it significantly, we want to see what they've added. So we will PE it, which means pending evaluation, and then within that year, that site will be scheduled for a review or a visit. And that's what that means. It just means we went in and took a look at it and we made a note. Okay. All right, under related competencies, I talked about these briefly earlier, but this one is, you've got a recommendation for introduction to leadership and 2 semester hours. And in the curriculum, the content, the lesson plans, we look at the student materials and the instructor materials and the assessments. These were the things that were addressed: management styles, oral communication techniques, project planning and development, and team building. And these are the ones that hopefully will help you in deciding if it's a match for your, you know, a leadership, introductory leadership course. Okay? And then you have marksmanship, of course, and we look at those. That's always a tough one. But there are programs out there now, so, you know, gunsmithing and all kinds of things that weren't out there 10 years ago, so it gets a little better. All right, so occupation search with the Military Guide Online is not really any different from the course search. So that makes it easy too. You don't have to learn a new system or a new search technique. Everything is exactly the same. And once again, you can see ACE ID numbers, MCE, Marine Corps, that's a 91 Alpha designator. And MOS, that's the Army, or is a 91 Golf. It's not, I'm sorry, duh. Just different designators, the way you can put them in. You can use the HM, you can use the 46 Zulu, you can punch in the MCE 0619-002, search however you like. Okay. And as I said, you get a description. Now, the information that we put in these is the formal, official description of these MOSs or occupations. We don't make them up. One thing we do look at very closely when we're doing occupations or MOSs is the critical task list to see the scope of that job. And then when we're doing the interviews, we're validating those through the interview process, looking at the assessments if there are assessments, and then teasing out what other skills that they are acquiring on the job above and beyond what they got in the classroom. So, any questions so far about the guide online or the transcript process? We're all good? Okay. All right, well, this is where I want to talk a little bit about the credit recommendations and your curriculum alignment, and then some transfer policies, etc. We're moving way ahead. There's an extended section in that transfer guide that I gave you on this particular area. These are just some examples of what an ACE credit recommendation looks like and what sample courses you might compare them to. Okay? The first one is that computer applications course. And it goes in and talks about the basic computer skills, business-oriented problem solving, data entry, inventory software, presentation development, software applications, and then it addresses which software applications. Sometimes you'll see some occupations or whatever, they will use, like our courses, they'll address the whole Microsoft Office suite. And we'll say that. Some of them don't. Some of them will go into Excel or PowerPoint or Word, but they won't have any, connection or hands-on experience with Access. So we try to be as specific as possible and not just group everything together like that, which is certainly the easier one. And you might have something like a business computer applications course that might apply, or computer concepts and applications. Now, the second one on here, this principles of management, this really demonstrates how a title can be misleading. And the reason for that is because the content of that course and the recommendation that they made doesn't really match your similar principles of management courses that you might see in your curriculum. So, you can't just go by title alone. You really need to look at the content and the related competencies if they have some attached. Okay. And once again, you see those related competencies and how they fall out. I can't stress the use of them enough. We focus a lot of attention on them when we're out in the field. And when I have a faculty member that'll come back and they'll give me a principles of management, say, and they'll give me 3 related topics, and they've got a 3-semester hour recommendation. And I'll say, okay, come on. I know there must have been more in here, or this is not a 3-semester hour course, right? Because there's a lot more in a Principles of Management course, and I know that because I took one, right? So, we work very hard on these to try to make them as descriptive and useful as possible for y'all. Okay, so transfer policies. Now, I've talked to some of y'all, and I know that a lot of the administrators aren't really pleased with their transfer policies because they think they're too restrictive, or they're just not, don't serve the service members well. So, ACE has a joint statement out there of things that we recommend, but we know that you guys are dealing with institutional policies, and then you drill down to your department policies, and those might be even more stringent. And then you have to look at, the policies may differ between graduate and undergraduate transfer credits and how those all work. So we know that your piece of this can be very complex as well. Will the course go for general ed? Some people don't want any transfer credit, particularly your non-traditional type, to transfer in for your general ed requirements. Some don't mind. If the degree requirements for their major don't line up, a lot of colleges and universities that are generous, they will usually let a service member transfer credits into for free electives. Of course, you only get so many of those, but then some are more strict, and they really want those free electives to be at least in the general area of their degree plan, right? There's a lot of different policies and procedures out there that we know y'all are dealing with. And I guess that's really what this whole Winter Institute is about, because it's all about prior learning experience and being more open to accepting this type of a credit, et cetera, and being more generous. So it's very timely, I would think. So these are just some samples of policies and how they're written. I mean, I deal with, so I have veterans call me and say, oh, I'm in an engineering program, and I came out of engineering in the Navy, spent 15 years doing it, and they won't transfer any credit. And then I have to talk to them about it, because not only are you dealing with y'all's policies and procedures, but you're also dealing with professional policies and procedures, requirements for professional accreditations, which is another layer. And that's a lot of problem when they're going to an engineering school that is professionally accredited, and these courses and the way we do them, they're not. I mean, there's just no way that we can do that piece. So that's very frustrating for our mechanical engineers or double E's. It's just an example of what you can encounter. These are some more. Not going to read them to y'all. Yeah, and here you are. Very conservative, rarely granted, determined by faculty. And then some of them will consider the credit recommendations for courses. And as I said, I think I may have mentioned earlier, they won't look at any MOS or occupation credit, because it's just too much for them. And these are some additional ones. We like to hit this really hard, as you can tell. But anyway, you have them all. And so this is the page, this is our resource tools for colleges and universities page, and it's in your handouts. And like I said, there's lots of information here for you. It's just a simple click. We've got lots of links, and it can certainly make your daily life easier when you're working with your service members or veterans and dealing with transfer credit. Okay? Okay. And that's how you get a hold of us. And I have cards too. You can always email me directly. Lots of people do. And once I send a note back to you, it's got all my contact information on the bottom of it anyway, and so that's the way I communicate from there on out. And if anybody's trying to call me, on my card and on my signature block, I have an office number and I have a cell number. That cell number is probably your best bet, or email me, because those are 24/7. I am not in the office a lot. I'm either out doing reviews, or I'm doing presentations, or just all kinds of things that, you know, they have us running around doing, and hopefully making life better, easier for you guys and our service members, because that's what it's all about. So, do I have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Has anybody ever given any credit for like where it says 1 hour in this area, 1 hour in another area, 1 hour in another area to be a 3-hour class?
Sure. Yeah, and a lot of times they call that bundling, where you can build it like that. Exactly. If you find there's a piece, and you think, okay, those three one credit hour recommendations, and you look at the related competencies or whatever, and they're the components of a course that you may have. Absolutely. That's totally at y'all's discretion. The other thing is we are really moving away from those 1 hour recommendations, because generally what we're saying, well, there's an argument out there by some of us, some of my colleagues, that to make the recommendation if it is only an hour, because sometimes, you know, a student will get to the end of their program and they'll be 1 hour short, and they may be able to pull that hour or roll it in, and then the service member will be able to complete their degree. So that is one thought process, but I find that if you can, and you may see we may make 4 semester hour recommendation, and that's because those courses are traditionally 4-hour courses, because once again we're pulling in that current college curriculum and the subject areas and the reflections of the credit, and then what we're seeing if it's lining up. If there's a 3 semester hour lecture piece and then there's a 1 hour lab, you will see our recommendations will break it down that way. As long as that lab component is there, there will be an additional recommendation for the lab. Like I mentioned yesterday, you know, as the military transcripts have evolved, and colleges and universities have evolved, so has ACE. I think our recommendations are better, they're more concise, and they're more applicable now than they've ever been in the past. And if you guys are seeing something different, please send me a note and let me know. Because we don't want to be out there doing work for the sake of doing work if we're missing the mark somewhere and it's not going to benefit our service members and they're achieving their educational goals. Okay? And I generally start off by telling everybody a little bit about me. And y'all might have been in the room yesterday, and I apologize for not doing that up front. I think the whole technology thing kind of freaked me out a little bit. But I am retired Army. I did 22 years, intelligence analyst. I started as an E1, and I retired as a warrant, and I loved every minute of it. When I retired, I went down to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, and started working in higher education. That's how I got my start. So I really learned that from the ground up too, doing those SOC agreements and working with a pencil and a paper, and then just I did that for about 14 years. I was down there for 2.5, and then I went back up to Guantanamo. I went back up to Washington D.C. and I worked at Fort Myer in the Pentagon, working with our service members, our soldiers, and all up there for quite a while. And then I became the director of the Washington campuses up there, and we had 5 locations. And I ran the grad programs. So that was very insightful. You know, I did the undergrad, then I did the graduate stuff. So, you know, it's kind of built on it, which was a good thing for me. Then this opportunity came open, and I applied. And I didn't really have any real concept of what I would be doing. I really didn't. You know, job descriptions are often like that. And when I got into it, I just absolutely loved it. I mean, I loved education. I've always believed in education. I come from Mississippi, and you know, you see a lot of people that are not educated, and you see that the hardships that they carry, and then you get out a little bit in the world and you see what education can do for you and how it can expand your mind and your opportunities. So I've always been a believer in learning and education. And then my love is the military. I'm not gonna joke around about that. So this allowed me to marry the two things that I really love the most above my husband and my child and my grandchild, and to feel like I was continuing to give and serve both fields. So it's like the perfect job, you know? And I get to meet lots of very interesting people, very smart people, and every time I do a review or I come out and do a workshop, I learn something from you guys and the service members each and every time. And to me, that's what it's all about, learning something new every day. So I thank you for allowing me to be here and to speak with you and to talk with you and learn from y'all, which I certainly have. And if I can be of any service in the future, please don't hesitate to call me. I'll be there. Okay? Thank you.